Good morning, friends. Let me ask you something. When you woke up today, what were the first words that came out of your mouth? Was it, "I'm tired"? Or maybe, "I don't feel like it"? Or even, "Oh no, another stressful day"? See, most people don't realize this, but the first words we speak in the morning set the vibration for the entire day. Florence Scovel Shinn, a woman ahead of her time, taught something so simple, yet so life-changing. She said, "Your word is your wand. Your words create your reality. Your words shape your opportunities. Your words either open the flow of wealth, or block it." So let me share with you a simple truth. If you want to open the flow of money, of abundance, of opportunity, you must start speaking it into your mornings. Imagine this. Two people wake up in the same city, on the same day. One rolls out of bed saying, "Ooh, life is hard. Nothing ever works out for me." The other stands tall and says, "Today, everything I need comes to me with ease. Money flows freely into my life. I am open to receive." Which one do you think will notice opportunities? Which one will attract people who want to help? Which one will walk with confidence into the day? Words are not just sounds. They are seeds. And every morning, you are planting them in the soil of your life. If you plant seeds of lack, you harvest lack. If you plant seeds of abundance, you harvest abundance. Let me give you a personal example. A friend of mine used to say, "I'm always broke. I just can't get ahead." And guess what? He was always broke. Always behind. One day, I told him, "Change the script. Try this for 30 days. So every morning, he started saying, "I am a magnet for wealth. Opportunities flow to me. Money comes from expected and unexpected sources." At first, he felt silly. But within weeks, he noticed something. He got offered freelance work he never applied for. A client who owed him money finally paid up. His boss recognized his effort and gave him a raise. Coincidence? No. It was the power of words reshaping his belief, and his belief opening the door for wealth. Now let me ask you, what are you planting every morning? Because here's the good news, you don't need money to start this practice. You don't need luck. You don't need connections. You just need your words. And your willingness to speak them with faith. Florence Scovel Shinn gave us affirmations like this. "I am now in the perfect expression of abundance. All that is mine by divine right flows to me now. Every door of wealth swings wide open for me." Say that. Every morning. With belief. With conviction. With energy. Not as a wish. Not as a maybe. But as a command. Because life listens to those who speak with authority. So tomorrow morning, don't start your day with complaint. Start it with command. Speak abundance. Speak wealth. Speak opportunity. And watch the flow of life rearrange itself to meet your words. Your tongue is not just for talking. It's for creating. And if you can create your words, you can create your wealth. So I leave you with this challenge. For the next 21 days, every single morning, speak these words. "I am open to the flow of wealth. Money, opportunities, and blessings come to me now, in perfect ways." Say it. Believe it. Live it. Because the moment you change your words, you change your world. Thank you. Following are the key points you will listen in this video. Your first words in the morning set the tone and energy for your entire day. Words are like seeds, what you plant, you eventually harvest. Negative self-talk creates lack, while affirmations create abundance. Speaking wealth-focused affirmations rewires your belief system and attracts opportunities. Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings show that your word is your wand, your words create your reality. A daily practice of affirmations like "I am open to the flow of wealth" can shift your mindset and open financial doors. When you open your eyes in the morning, there is a brief, almost magical silence. The world hasn't fully claimed your attention yet. The phone hasn't started buzzing, the emails haven't started piling, and no one is demanding your energy. In that fragile pause, the very first words you speak slip past your lips and set a vibration that ripples through the rest of your day. Most people don't realize the power hidden in that moment. They underestimate it, treating it casually, as though it doesn't matter what they say when they rise. Yet, it matters more than almost anything else, because those first words are like a tuning fork. They align your mind, your emotions, and even your body with a particular frequency, and that frequency is what you carry into every interaction, every decision, every opportunity. Think of it like this. Imagine two musicians tuning their instruments before a performance. One tightens the strings with care, listens for clarity, and ensures the sound is pure. The other shrugs, leaves it sloppy, and just starts playing. By the time the concert begins, one fills the room with harmony, and the other creates noise that no one wants to hear. Your first words in the morning are your tuning. They are your way of choosing whether you will walk into your day in harmony or in discord. Picture a person waking up on a Monday. The alarm rings, and without thinking they groan, "Ooh, I'm so tired. I hate Mondays." They stumble to the bathroom muttering, "Another long day, another dollar. Life never gets easier." Those words may seem small, like a harmless complaint, but they are seeds planted in the soil of their mind. The moment those words take root, the brain starts scanning for evidence to support them. Tired? Yes, you feel exhausted. Hate Mondays? Every traffic light you hit red will prove it. Life never gets easier. Watch how the smallest task feels heavier than it should. Their words have set the program, and now the day unfolds to match the script. Now imagine another person, waking up in the very same city, on the very same Monday. The alarm rings, and they stretch their arms wide, smile even if they don't feel like it yet, and say, "Thank you for this day. I'm alive, I'm blessed, and today will bring me good things." They speak with intention, even if their circumstances aren't perfect. They continue with words like, "I am full of energy, wealth flows to me, and opportunities are already seeking me out." Those words, too, are seeds. The mind hears them and begins scanning for evidence. Gratitude. Suddenly, the morning coffee feels richer. Blessings. They notice a friendly smile from a stranger. Opportunities. They feel more confident in conversations, more alert in meetings, more willing to say yes when something new appears. Their words have tuned their day to a frequency of possibility. Florence Scovel Shinn said, "Your word is your wand." That isn't poetic exaggeration, it is a spiritual law, one that modern psychology and neuroscience keep proving. When you say, "I'm tired," your body obeys. When you say, "I'm energized," your body looks for ways to support that statement. Words trigger chemical responses. They shift hormones. They affect posture and breathing. Your words are not just sounds, they are signals that shape your entire being. I once knew a man who always woke up with the same phrase, "Another day, another struggle." He didn't even realize he was saying it anymore, it had become automatic. And sure enough, every day felt like a battle for him. Bills piled up, his job felt unbearable, his health declined, and he walked around with a heaviness that everyone could see. One day, after a long conversation, I suggested he replace those words. I asked him, "What if, tomorrow morning, you tried something different? What if you said, 'Another day, another chance' instead of 'another struggle'?" He laughed at first, said it wouldn't change anything, but he tried. The first morning, it felt strange. The second morning, it felt a little lighter. By the end of the week, he noticed he was walking into his job with less dread. By the end of the month, he was approaching problems differently. Within 6 months, he had been promoted. The only thing he had changed was the first phrase he spoke every morning, but that small seed grew into an entirely different harvest. It's easy to dismiss this as coincidence until you start practicing it yourself. Think about the mornings when you began with negativity versus the mornings you began with hope. Haven't you noticed how the energy of those days unfolds differently? When you start the day saying, "Nothing ever goes my way," your brain filters the world through that lens, and even when something good happens, you miss it because you're tuned to lack. But when you start with, "I am open to good things today," your awareness sharpens, and you begin to notice the very opportunities you used to overlook. Children understand this power better than adults sometimes. Watch a child wake up on their birthday. The first words they often say are, "Today is my special day, I can't wait." Their excitement carries them all day, making even small things like balloons or a slice of cake feel extraordinary. Now imagine if adults carried that same practice into every morning, declaring, "Today is my special day to receive, to grow, to prosper." That childlike enthusiasm is not naivety, it is alignment. Consider athletes, too. Before a big game, they don't wake up muttering, "I hope I don't fail." They stand in front of mirrors and say things like, "I am ready. I am strong. I will win." Why? Because they know words program performance. They know that victory begins in the mind before it appears on the scoreboard. If it works for athletes chasing gold medals, why wouldn't it work for you chasing financial abundance, opportunities, and peace of mind? Think of your morning words as the opening scene of a movie. If a movie begins with darkness, sorrow, and defeat, your mind expects the story to continue that way. But if a movie begins with hope, laughter, and possibility, your mind anticipates a brighter journey. You are both the writer and the actor of your own film, and each morning you decide how the story will begin. It doesn't require grand speeches. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, "I am grateful. I am abundant. I am ready." Other times, it might be, "Everything I need is already on its way. I welcome wealth and joy into my life." The key is not the length of the words but the conviction behind them. Speak them with faith, not as empty phrases but as commands to the universe and reminders to yourself. So the next time you open your eyes, pause before you say anything. Recognize that you are holding a wand in your hand, the wand of words, and whatever you wave it over will grow. You can wave it over fear, lack, and exhaustion, or you can wave it over strength, abundance, and peace. The choice is always yours, and the moment to choose begins with the very first breath of your day. When you think of a seed, it looks so small, so insignificant. You could hold 100 in your hand, and it would feel like nothing. But inside that tiny seed lies the potential for a tree that could stand for hundreds of years, provide shade, shelter, and fruit to generations. Words work the exact same way. Each one you speak may seem small in the moment, but over time, it takes root in the soil of your subconscious, grows quietly, and produces a harvest, good or bad, that you eventually live inside of. Picture a farmer walking across his field at sunrise. In one hand, he carries corn seed. In the other, he carries thistle and weed seed. He begins to scatter them both, not really paying attention to where each lands. Weeks later, when he returns to the field, he's frustrated. The weeds choke the corn. The soil looks messy. He asks himself, "Why is my field such a disaster?" The answer is simple: he planted without awareness. He sowed weeds and wondered why the harvest was bitter. Isn't that what so many of us do with our words? We scatter complaints, we scatter fear, we scatter doubt, and then we wonder why our life feels tangled in problems and lack. Florence Scovel Shinn reminded us that every word is a seed. She said, "The game of life is a game of boomerangs." Our thoughts, deeds, and words return to us sooner or later with astounding accuracy. If you plant words of abundance, you get abundance. If you plant words of scarcity, you get scarcity. It doesn't matter whether you meant them casually or seriously, the soil of your subconscious doesn't discriminate. It simply grows what you plant. Let me give you a real-life example. I once met a woman named Clara who constantly said, "I'm terrible with money. It slips through my fingers." She would laugh when she said it, almost as if it were a joke. But her financial life reflected exactly those words. Every time she got a bonus, it vanished. Every time she saved, an emergency popped up. She was living in the harvest of her words. One day, in a workshop, she was challenged to change her seed. Instead of saying, "I'm terrible with money," she started saying, "I am learning to master money. Money respects me and stays with me." At first, it felt unnatural. But just like planting corn in spring, results take time. 6 months later, she was budgeting with ease. A year later, she had her first real savings account. The seed had taken root. Think about your own life. How many times have you said things like, "I never get a break," or "money doesn't grow on trees," or "that's just my bad luck"? Those words may feel harmless in the moment, but they are seeds of limitation. If you plant them every day, don't be surprised when your life feels limited, when luck seems to pass you by, when money feels scarce. Your words are simply giving you the harvest you asked for. Now imagine shifting those seeds. Imagine waking up each morning and planting words like, I am open to wealth. Opportunities are seeking me. I am favored and blessed. At first, the field looks bare. You might not see immediate change. Just like a farmer, you need patience. The soil needs time. The sun and rain need to do their work. But slowly, beneath the surface, something is happening. The roots are stretching, the sprouts are forming, and soon, you'll look around and realize you are walking in a different harvest. Children are some of the clearest mirrors of this truth. A child who grows up constantly hearing, you're smart, you can do anything, will often step into life with confidence, willing to take risks and seize opportunities. Meanwhile, a child who grows up hearing, you're always causing trouble or you'll never amount to much, may carry those seeds like chains into adulthood, doubting themselves even when doors open. Words planted early become forests that last for decades. That's how powerful they are. I remember a teacher who understood this principle. She once told a struggling student, "You are brilliant. You just haven't found your rhythm yet." Those words became a turning point. Years later, that same student wrote back, saying, "I built my career on the belief you planted in me that day." It wasn't the lesson plan that changed the child's life. It was a single seed of affirmation. This is why you must be vigilant about the words you choose, especially the ones you repeat. Repetition is watering. If you say something once, it's like tossing a seed on dry soil. But if you say it every day, with emotion, it's like watering it until it grows strong. Think of someone who constantly repeats, "I'm unlucky. Nothing works out for me." They are watering weeds every single day. The more they water, the bigger those weeds become, until they choke out all the possibility around them. On the other hand, someone who repeats, "Everything I need is flowing to me. Life supports me," is watering flowers. Over time, the field of their life blooms with opportunities that feel almost miraculous. Here's another analogy. Imagine your words as a shopping list handed to the universe. When you say, "I can't afford it," you're placing lack in your cart. When you say, "Money comes to me easily," you're placing wealth in your cart. When you say, "I never meet the right people," you're ordering loneliness. When you say, "The right people are drawn to me," you're ordering connection. The universe doesn't ask if you were joking, or if you were serious, or if you were just venting. It simply fills the order based on the words you planted. A friend of mine once created a habit where every time he caught himself saying something negative, he would literally clap his hands and say out loud, "Cancel, cancel." Then he would replace it with a positive seed. If he said, "I can't do this," he would stop and say, "Cancel, cancel. I am capable. I always find a way." That small discipline transformed his outlook, and eventually, his circumstances. He realized he had been unconsciously planting weeds for years, and the moment he started planting better seeds, his life field began to change. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. You can always uproot the weeds and start planting again. A field doesn't stay barren forever unless you abandon it. Likewise, your life doesn't stay stuck forever unless you keep speaking the same limiting words. Start today. Start small. Even something as simple as replacing "I can't afford this" with "I'm choosing to prioritize my money differently right now, and more is on its way to me" changes the seed. Instead of planting lack, you're planting growth. So let me ask you, what seeds have you been scattering without realizing it? Have you been planting fear, doubt, and struggle? Or are you planting abundance, faith, and opportunity? The beauty of this truth is that you always have a choice. Every word is another seed in your field. And the harvest you live tomorrow will be determined by what you choose to speak today. Have you ever caught yourself saying something under your breath like, "I'm so stupid," or "I'll never get it right," after making a mistake? Most people have. It slips out quickly, almost like a reflex. But here's the danger. Every time you say those words, your subconscious hears them as commands, not jokes. It doesn't laugh, it doesn't argue, it doesn't reason. It simply obeys. And if you feed it words of lack and limitation, it will build your reality around them. Negative self-talk is like a slow poison. You don't see the damage immediately, but over time, it seeps into your confidence, your relationships, and your opportunities. Imagine standing in front of a mirror every morning and whispering, "You're not good enough." You might say it with sarcasm, you might even laugh about it, but after days, weeks, and months, your mind begins to accept it as truth. Then, when opportunities show up, like a chance to apply for a better job, speak up in a meeting, or share your idea, you shrink back, because deep down, the words you've been planting have convinced you that you don't deserve it. Florence Scovel Shinn said, owing to the vibratory power of words, whatever man voices, he begins to attract. Think about that. Whatever you voice, positive or negative, you start pulling into your life. Say often enough, "I can't catch a break," and soon, your life seems filled with setbacks. Repeat, "I always attract good fortune," and somehow, doors begin to swing open at the right time. The world hasn't changed, it's your words that changed, and with them, your awareness and expectations. I once met a young woman named Elena who constantly told herself, "I'm terrible with people." She avoided networking, hated job interviews, and struggled to make friends. Her words created her reality. She walked into rooms already convinced people wouldn't like her, so she carried herself with tension, avoided eye contact, and missed every opportunity for connection. Then, in a coaching session, she was asked to change her inner script. She began practicing affirmations like, "I am warm, magnetic, and people love to connect with me." At first, she didn't believe it. She felt like she was lying to herself. But day after day, she repeated those affirmations. Slowly, her posture shifted. Her smile grew easier. Within months, she had new friends, and not long after, she landed a job that came directly through her new connections. The only difference was her words. Negative self-talk creates lack because it trains your brain to look for what's missing, what's broken, what's wrong with you. It blinds you to opportunities because you've already convinced yourself you can't handle them. It's like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on, you press the gas, but you stay stuck. Affirmations, on the other hand, release the brake. They don't magically drop money in your lap, but they change the way you see yourself, and that changes the way you act, the risks you take, the people you attract, and the outcomes you experience. Think of an athlete standing at the starting line of a race. Imagine if she said to herself, "I'll probably lose. I'm not fast enough." Even if her body is trained, her mind has already accepted defeat. Now imagine the same athlete whispering, "I've trained for this. I am strong. I will win." Which mindset do you think produces better results? The training might be the same, but the words set the outcome before the race even begins. Life works the same way. There's a story of a man who used to say every morning, "Nothing good ever happens to me." And sure enough, nothing good ever did. He was stuck in jobs he hated, his relationships crumbled, and he felt invisible in the world. One day, someone challenged him to change just one word in that sentence. Instead of saying, "Nothing good ever happens to me," he began saying, "Something good always happens to me." At first, he looked around and thought, "That's not true." But then, small things began to appear. He found $1 on the street. He got a free coffee. He bumped into an old friend who introduced him to a new opportunity. The more he affirmed it, the more evidence appeared. Why? Because his words were no longer creating lack, they were creating abundance. Negative self-talk is like throwing shade over the soil where your dreams are trying to grow. No matter how fertile the ground, the seed can't flourish without sunlight. Affirmations are the sunlight. They may not produce instant fruit, but they give your inner garden the warmth it needs to grow strong. Some people resist affirmations because they say, "I don't want to lie to myself. I don't feel abundant. I don't feel wealthy. I don't feel confident." But affirmations aren't about lying, they're about leading. They're not a denial of reality, they're a declaration of the reality you're stepping into. When a child says, "I'm going to be a doctor," we don't call it a lie, we call it vision. Affirmations are visions spoken out loud until they become real. Florence gave affirmations like, "I am now in the perfect expression of abundance. All that is mine by divine right flows to me." Imagine starting your morning with those words instead of, "I'm broke" or "Life is unfair." The energy shift is undeniable. One set of words closes the door, the other opens it. Here's another way to see it. Your self-talk is like a GPS system. If you program it with "I'll never succeed," it will guide you in circles of failure. But if you program it with "I'm capable and success finds me," it will redirect you, even through obstacles, toward your destination. The roads may twist and turn, but your inner GPS keeps moving you closer to the wealth and abundance you've spoken into existence. I once heard a story about a woman who, every morning for years, stood in front of her mirror and said, "I am rich, happy, and healthy." At the time, she was broke, depressed, and sick. But she refused to let her words mirror her circumstances. Instead, she let her words lead her circumstances. Slowly, her health improved, opportunities appeared, and her finances turned around. Looking back, she said, "My life followed my words. I spoke it until I lived it." The truth is simple: negative self-talk will always keep you small, while affirmations expand your life. The words you speak about yourself are either a cage or a key. They either lock you in lack or unlock the flow of abundance. And the choice is always yours. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I can't," replace it with, "I can." When you hear yourself whispering, "I'll never," shift it to, "I always." When you feel the old reflex of doubt, stop and say, "Cancel, cancel," and replace it with an affirmation of abundance. Over time, these small shifts will create a new inner reality, and that new reality will produce outer results. Because the truth is this: your life is an echo of your words. Speak lack, and lack will echo back. Speak abundance, and abundance will answer. Belief is a powerful thing. It's the lens through which you see the world, and it decides what you notice, what you ignore, and what you allow yourself to pursue. If belief is the lens, then affirmations are the polish that clears away the smudges and distortions. Every time you speak a wealth-focused affirmation, you're not just saying pretty words, you're rewiring the way you see yourself and what you expect from life. And when your belief shifts, your opportunities shift with it. Imagine two people walking into the same networking event. One has been repeating for weeks, "I never meet the right people. No one notices me." That's their belief system. So, when they enter the room, they stand in the corner, shrink into themselves, and fail to make meaningful connections. The other person, however, has been saying every morning, "I attract the right people. Every connection I make leads to something valuable." Their belief system is different. They walk into the room with their head high, smiling, ready to meet others. And sure enough, they leave with new contacts, new leads, maybe even a new friend. Same event, same room, same crowd, but two completely different outcomes. Why? Because the beliefs, shaped by words, framed the experience. Florence Scovel Shinn said, "The subconscious mind takes the orders you give it, whether it be constructive or destructive, and carries them out with astonishing faithfulness." This means every affirmation you speak is a direct instruction to your subconscious. If you say, "I can't afford it," your subconscious begins scanning for reasons and evidence that prove it true. If you say, "I am wealthy, and money flows to me easily," your subconscious starts scanning for ways to make that true. It begins noticing opportunities you would have ignored before. It nudges you toward people and places that align with wealth. It's not magic, it's focus. I once knew a man who always said, "I'm just not the kind of person who makes money." That belief had been wired into him since childhood, when he heard his parents say things like, "People like us never get ahead." As an adult, even when opportunities were placed right in front of him, he self-sabotaged. He turned down promotions. He avoided investments. He lived paycheck to paycheck. Then, one day, he decided to experiment with affirmations. He chose one simple line, "I am worthy of wealth and open to receive it." At first, it felt false. He almost laughed at himself. But he kept saying it. Every morning, every night. Slowly, his belief began to shift. He started carrying himself differently. He took chances he would have ignored before. Within 2 years, he had doubled his income. His circumstances didn't change first, his words did. That's how powerful affirmations are. They rewire your belief system, and that rewired belief system rewires your actions. Think about it: if you believe opportunities are scarce, you'll never chase them. But if you believe opportunities are everywhere, you'll see them where others see nothing. Affirmations build that belief until it becomes your default way of thinking. Here's an analogy. Think of your belief system as a thermostat. If the thermostat is set to scarcity, no matter how much money or opportunity flows into your life, you'll find a way to cool it back down through overspending, fear, or self-doubt. But if you reset your thermostat to abundance, even when challenges come, you'll naturally rise back up to wealth and success. Affirmations are how you reset the thermostat. Each declaration is like turning the dial toward a new setting, until eventually, abundance feels natural instead of foreign. Let me paint another picture. Have you ever bought a new car, or even thought about buying one, and suddenly, you start seeing that exact model everywhere on the road? It's not that everyone suddenly bought the same car overnight. It's that your mind, focused on it, now notices what it used to overlook. This is called the reticular activating system in neuroscience. Affirmations work the same way. When you affirm, "I attract wealth and opportunities," your brain begins filtering your environment differently. It highlights possibilities you would have ignored, introduces you to people you would have overlooked, and presents solutions that previously felt invisible. Florence gave affirmations like, "I am now linked by an invisible, unbreakable bond to my supply. All that is mine by divine right flows to me." Imagine repeating that daily. At first, maybe nothing dramatic changes. But over weeks, months, years, your subconscious absorbs it. It becomes part of your belief system. And soon, when opportunities knock, you no longer say, "That's not for me." Instead, you say, "Yes, this belongs to me." There's a story about a woman who struggled financially for years. Every morning, she repeated, "I am drowning in debt. I'll never escape." Unsurprisingly, she stayed stuck. Then she decided to flip her words. She began saying, "I am free from debt. I live in abundance. Wealth is flowing into my life." At first, it felt like a cruel joke after all, the bills were still stacked high. But something inside her shifted. She started making different choices. She reached out for new opportunities. Within 3 years, she had paid off her debt and was building savings. When asked how she did it, she said, "It started with changing my words. Once I believed I could be free, I began to act like someone who was free." And isn't that the secret? Belief dictates behavior. Behavior creates results. And words shape belief. The cycle begins with the simplest thing, what you choose to say to yourself every morning. It doesn't matter how dire your situation looks. It doesn't matter how long you've struggled. Affirmations are a way to retrain the inner voice that has been narrating your life story. If that inner voice has been saying, "You'll always struggle," then of course you struggle. But if you train it to say, "I am destined for wealth. I live in a universe of abundance," then slowly, your actions, your choices, and your awareness align with that truth. Think of a gardener who has always grown weeds because that's what he thought the soil could produce. One day, he decides to plant roses. At first, he doubts it will work. But he plants them anyway. He waters them daily. Weeks later, the first buds appear. Then, a bloom. Then, a whole garden. Affirmations are those new seeds. They may feel out of place at first, but if you keep planting, keep watering, your inner garden shifts. So when you speak wealth-focused affirmations, don't do it as a hollow ritual. Do it as a rewiring. Do it knowing that every word is a stroke on the canvas of your belief. And when your belief is painted with abundance, your life begins to match the masterpiece inside. Because here's the truth, the world doesn't just give you what you want, it gives you what you believe. And affirmations are the bridge from wanting to believing. Florence Scovel Shinn had a way of saying things that sounded almost like fairy tales, but if you leaned in closely, you realized she was describing the mechanics of life itself. One of her most famous statements was, "Your word is your wand." At first, it sounds poetic, whimsical, almost childlike. But if you let it sink in, you realize she was teaching one of the greatest truths about human existence. Your words carry creative power, and like a wand, they shape the world around you. Think for a moment about what a wand does in every story we've ever read. It points, it commands, and instantly, reality responds. The magician waves it, and the room changes. The sorceress lifts it, and something appears out of nothing. Florence wasn't saying we walk around with wooden sticks that shoot sparks, she was saying our words are the true wands. When we speak, we point our energy, we cast intention, and reality begins to rearrange itself in response. Imagine two people standing at the edge of opportunity. One waves their wand with words like, "I can't do this. I'm not good enough. Nothing works out for me." Instantly, their path shrinks, doors close, and their energy dims. The other waves their wand with words like, "I am equipped. I am favored. Life supports me." Suddenly, options appear, people lean in to help, and confidence radiates. The same stage, the same chance, yet two entirely different realities because of the wand they used. I once spoke with a man who had lost nearly everything, his job, his savings, and even his sense of identity. He kept repeating, "I'm ruined. My life is over." Those words became his wand, and sure enough, they kept his eyes fixed on failure. He overlooked opportunities, ignored calls, and pushed away help. Then one day, almost out of desperation, he decided to test Florence's principle. He began waking up and declaring, "I am divinely guided. I am rising. Everything I lost is being restored." At first, nothing seemed to change, but after weeks, his energy shifted. He walked differently, spoke differently. People noticed. Soon, he was offered a new role, and from there, his financial and emotional life turned around. He later said, "When I changed my words, I changed my world." Florence understood something most people miss. Words are not decorations. They are directions. Every time you speak, you're not just describing reality, you're commanding it. Think of it like a GPS system. If you tell it, "Take me to failure," it will guide you there, step by step. If you tell it, "Take me to wealth and abundance," it recalculates and starts steering you toward new paths, new turns, new opportunities. Your words program your life just like you program a destination. Science even supports this. Studies show that words affect our emotions, our physiology, and even our brain patterns. When you say, "I'm stressed," your body tenses, your heart rate rises, and your stress hormones spike. When you say, "I am calm and centered," your body responds with relaxation, lowering tension. Words are signals, and your body obeys them faithfully. Florence simply stretched this idea further, showing us that not only does your body respond, but so does your environment. Think about relationships. If someone constantly says, "No one ever listens to me," they walk into conversations already defeated, and people, sensing that energy, tune them out. But if someone says, "My words have value. People respect me," they speak with more authority, and others lean in. Which wand are you waving in your own relationships? Are you summoning respect or rejection? A friend once told me a story about her grandmother. Every morning, her grandmother would stand at the window and say, "Today, everything good will come to me." She didn't come from wealth, she didn't have advanced education, but somehow, she always had what she needed. Neighbors would bring food when money was low, opportunities would show up at just the right time, and her home was always filled with warmth and provision. When asked how she managed it, she simply said, "I told the day what it would be. And the day obeyed." That is a living example of Florence's wand principle in action. But here's the catch, a wand doesn't discriminate. It simply amplifies whatever words you choose. Say, "I'm unlucky," and your wand reinforces it. Say, "I am blessed," and your wand brings blessing into view. Florence warned that careless words were just as powerful as intentional ones. You can wave the wand for destruction as easily as for creation. That's why she urged people to guard their speech carefully. Think of your words like seeds of magic planted in the soil of life. Each affirmation is a spell of creation. Each complaint is a spell of limitation. Day by day, you are casting. Day by day, your wand is shaping. The only question is, what are you creating with it? Here's an exercise Florence would often give. When you catch yourself speaking something negative, stop and say, "That is not the truth. The truth is," and replace it with a statement of abundance. For example, if you say, "I'll never have enough money," stop and declare, "That is not the truth. The truth is, wealth flows to me from every direction." Each time you do this, you're learning to control your wand instead of letting it swing wildly. There's a story I love of a woman who always said, "I'm invisible. No one ever notices me." She lived that reality, passed over at work, overlooked in social settings. Then she began using her wand differently. She affirmed, "I am radiant. People see me, value me, and want to connect with me." Within weeks, her boss called her into a meeting and offered her a leadership position. New friends entered her life. She laughed and said, "It was like I was wearing a cloak of invisibility, and when I changed my words, I took it off." The beauty of Florence's teaching is that it puts the power back in your hands. You don't need to wait for the economy, the government, or anyone else to dictate your future. You hold the wand. You decide what to command. You can summon wealth. You can summon peace. You can summon love. And once you realize that, life is never the same. So the next time you open your mouth, pause and remember, you are holding your wand. Will you wave it toward lack, or toward abundance? Toward fear, or toward faith? Toward limitation, or toward freedom? Every sentence is a spell, and every spell builds your reality. Florence's legacy continues to echo today because her words weren't fantasy, they were truth wrapped in simplicity. She showed us that we are all magicians, and the wand is already in our possession. The only question is, are we using it wisely? Repetition is the mother of mastery, and when it comes to abundance, it is also the key that unlocks hidden doors. A single affirmation spoken once might feel like a spark in the dark, but a daily practice is what builds a fire strong enough to light your entire path. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this deeply. She knew that saying something once plants a seed, but saying it every day waters that seed until it takes root and grows into your reality. Imagine this: you walk into a room and flip a light switch. The first time, maybe the bulb flickers. The second time, a faint glow appears. But if you keep flipping that switch, eventually the light shines bright. Daily affirmations work the same way. They flip on the circuits in your mind, training your subconscious to expect abundance, and soon enough, that expectation spills into your real life. One of my friends had a habit of waking up and immediately checking his phone. Bad news, unpaid bills, stressful emails, it was his daily ritual. And of course, his day always felt heavy, overwhelming, and full of lack. I asked him to try something simple for 30 days. Before touching his phone, he had to speak out loud, "I am open to the flow of wealth."